we started settling up and gave birth to new occupations like artisans and craftsmen. I think people celebrated an opening of a carpenter workhouse as much as we celebrate some crazy hardware device or a fancy mobile application. In the 19th and 20th century, we saw setting up of factories, which is our most early image of a modern workspace. Post World War II, things got advanced with founding of corporates, where thousands of people used to work under the same roof. Interestingly, typewriters used to be extremely noisy at that time, and people started feeling a little less private, which is what motivated Robert Probst, a designer for home furnishing company Herman Miller, to start producing the cubicle. This cubicle had a huge desk, a space for making phone calls, vertical filing system, and partitions so workers could have some privacy. Gradually, people started feeling less social and the walls started dissolving. New age tech companies like Google, Apple, and Facebook started the trend of open workspaces. The whole startup scenario in the past 2 decades made possible the invention of co-working spaces, which provides companies with benefits in terms of cost and time to operate. And most recently, the pandemic of COVID-19 forced the whole world to actually operate remotely and work from anywhere. During this whole evolution of work and the workspaces, we humans have also gone through a lot of psychological changes. We at Zinnov call it the S factor of work. The hunters, gatherers, the amateur farmers work for survival. The end goal was really to fulfill the sense of hunger. The next phase was all about acquiring new skills. And this is where the feeling of being creative got into us. The journey went on for centuries till the idea of money was on the head of all of us. We started focusing on our monthly earnings, the so-called salaries. But salary, as they say, has its charm till a tipping point, and the next thing we started looking for was satisfaction. The whole school of entrepreneurship took birth from the fact that there were people who were not really satisfied with the work they were doing. We saw how Gen X and Gen Y turned down big offers, dropped out from colleges to pursue the work of their choice. Taking this idea further, the whole workforce of today follows the philosophical school of self-activation, which enforces the idea that we are in the control of our emotions, actions, and reactions, and can turn our obstacles into opportunities to grow. And today, we all together stand against the obstacles created by COVID-19, which forces us to stay at home. Amidst all this, the world continues to function through the medium of remote work. The interesting part, though, is that unlike the virus, work from anywhere actually didn't reach its peak in the last 3 months alone. It happened gradually over the past 6 to 7 decades. The story actually began with NASA, which started working on telemedicine as it wanted to ensure the health and safety of astronauts in the spacecraft. Steve Jobs, the visionary of his time, predicted a long time back how future would have remote work embedded in it. A real life example of this was seen in the 90s when the city of Los Angeles, due to increase in air pollution, allowed its 400 plus workers to actually work remotely. And today it's fascinating that we have more than 400 million knowledge workers and frontline workers working remotely and almost comfortably. According to me, technology is the language of remote work. Like the language helps us communicate effectively, technology has helped us collaborate productively from anywhere. Post the world wars, we saw that the semiconductor and telecom industries grew, where every new decade people had a new device. From typing hello in the Morse code to typing what's up on WhatsApp became a long way. Another form of communication has been the cloud. The advancements in digital infrastructure slowly replaced the need of hardware, and another boost happened to the remote work. Today, if you think of it, you don't really need to drive to office to share a large file in a pen drive. You can actually just upload it on a Microsoft Drive and your work is done. And now, when we function remotely, the key digital technologies like artificial intelligence, robotic process automation, augmented reality, etc., has added to the productivity and the efficiency of the remote worker. The remote work actually changed a lot of things. Today, you do not wake up to go to office. You wake up and switch on your laptop for a virtual meeting. Interestingly, the work stress is taken care in flip-flops and comfy shorts, and the work clothes are actually taking rest in your wardrobe. The division between life hours and work hours has gone away. Today, after an exhausting client call, you most likely watch the TV show The Office and watch Michael Scott do insanely funny things. And while you do that, you see a message on Microsoft Teams on a deliverable status. The harmony is to embrace this flexibility and make the best out of it. And that is what Zinnov defines as a modern worker. The modern worker who is accepting and adaptive at the same time. Here, we all have colleagues who have adjusted really well by dedicating the commute time to activities like yoga, reading, and even supporting with daily chores. On personal front, we have deepened our bonds with our family members by spending more time with them and noticing little nuances of life, which we used to miss out due to constant hustle and travel. On professional front, I've observed that sales calls or discussions with clients are now more intensive because no one is actually worried about traffic anymore, which is a curse, during peak hours in cities like New York and Bangalore. One of the striking realization of this remote work model is the fact that most humans are actually multi-talented, and in the future will explore different types of jobs simultaneously and not really restricted to one type of work. This will result in them training the various parts of their brain and also result in higher job satisfaction. We strongly believe that white collar work with remote working flexibility could help people explore their various interests and actually even enable them to monetize those interests as we go forward. One of the things that I've been constantly mentioning is change. Work changed, workplace changed, technology at work changed, even the working hours changed. Not just that, the way we behave during work has changed drastically. Many of us, for example, used to put a lot of attention on our attires while going for a presentation to a client. But that is no longer the case now. Now, we are more worried probably about the video call settings. We do not want the client or our teams to listen to arbitrary things we say, assuming we are on mute. We all get to see or hear such instances every now and then. So I guess, again, it took 60 years to get to be the wise employee from the wise monkeys of Mahatma Gandhi. Taking it to the next level, we are now really more worried about Wi-Fi performance more than our car's performance. And in fact, that is the biggest worry I have right now in terms of dropping the Wi-Fi connection. Moving on, and now, when I talk about changes that come and adjustments that take place, I want to mention key developments that are happening in the life of a modern worker. After doing lots of analysis, reading reports of how companies are dealing with transition, observing myself and my colleagues, working with Rajat on many of our client projects, we have categorized them into three key areas: skills, sensitivities, and selection. As I said, the work life is pretty mixed up, so to work flexible and be productive is really a skill people are now developing. Initially, people felt a little stressed due to the whole lockdown scenario, but when they happen to see the positive side of it, they happen to actually automatically upgrade themselves. As they call us, social animals, we of course do miss the physical interaction, the water cooler conversations, and everything around it. But we have to make the right changes to embrace the present. We have to stay motivated, learn how to push a team on a Zoom call that earlier we used to in our meeting room by yelling or by making a solid graph on the whiteboard. We will have to empathize with our colleagues more than ever. Make sure we type all the good things on emails or chats that we used to say it across the desk or during the tea breaks in the pre-pandemic time. In fact, according to a recent Cisco study, nearly 9 out of 10 managers said that as a result of the pandemic, they increased emphasis on employee well-being and work-life balance. And this euphony can be achieved by two-way efforts, or better, I call it a give or take relationship or a put and get relationship. Employer should help employees set up warm workspaces at home. The HR should carry fun activities to fill the space of the office parties and lunch. And on the other side, employees should engage in upskilling themselves on virtual communication front as well as the technology front. And I personally believe trust is going to be more important in modern workplace than anything else. I want to re-emphasize that technology is the language of modern work. We all know languages keeps on evolving so that we can communicate better. Plus, language differs from person to person. For example, our parents do not speak the same words as we do, and the same is perhaps applicable for our kids as well. And here we have divided the workforce into three categories: a thinker, a manager, and a doer, which is relevant to most of the industries I can think of today. Priorities of these three are very different, and they are fulfilled by different sets of technology. For example, a CEO has a lot of calls and meetings to attend, so she is extensively dependent on collaboration tools. Plus, for her time is very crucial. She would use any application that could help her save that time even more, like artificial intelligence enabled transcription services or AI assistants for her meetings management. On the other side, a doer, collaboration tools are probably important, but not that important, right? For him, task automation would help him make the most out of time, and use of technologies like mixed reality could actually help them create a digital twin of the product and engage in an intense yet immersive learning experience. In between these two, the doer and the thinker, a manager makes the best out of both extremes. They're highly dependent on tools that help them measure plants productivity, or let's say a doer's utilization, for example. And all of these purposes are fulfilled by different permutations and combinations of a set of digital technologies encompassing automation, cloud, AI, IoT, spatial computing, blockchain, and you can think of many others like that. The evidence of rapid technology adoption is also visible in the form of funding and acquisitions and growth of the technology companies. Let's call them the suppliers of technology. Microsoft, Atlassian, HPE, Coursera, and many others who are not there on the slide in terms of their logos. They're all not just withholding the current shock from the pandemic, but they're actually also gaining from it. Broadening the horizon here, I want to also highlight that the modern worker is also influencing the products and services strategies of different industries. The day is not far when we would have Zoom or Teams or any other collaboration software for that matter inbuilt in the automobile infotainment system. As we are making office space in our homes, future real estate would incorporate this trend in design and architecture of a smart home. We can already see how telecommunication, which is the backbone of remote work, is taking initiatives to strengthen its services. Jio has now launched its own collaboration tool, and Airtel has partnered with Blue Jeans, all with the intent of tightening and being innovative around the video conferencing service. For banking and retail, contactless is the theme, keeping in mind the current scenario. In fact, MasterCard recently did a survey and they found out that 82% of the respondents worldwide now view contactless as the cleaner way to pay. And 74%, very interestingly, 74% state that they will continue to use contactless payments even post the pandemic is over. Education is a fascinating example, very interesting industry in terms of how they are getting transformed. Think of universities like Harvard, who today or in the pre-pandemic time charged an exorbitant amount of money for high quality education. The big question for them is whether people can get the same level of education through star professors, like you have star actors or musicians, who can now deliver the lectures via YouTube and get paid via the advertisement money instead of the student fees. These kind of trends will have far-reaching consequences for many of the industries that we are living and breathing today. So in summary, we think that the future of workspace would be classic. And that's the consultant in me looking at the acronyms and trying to expand it. It's ironical how mostly we use the term classic for vintage items. If you talk about classic and each of the letters that we have called out here, collaboration would be a very important pillar for the future of workspace. Facebook is planning to adopt permanent work from home, and most of the organizations in the world would be keeping remote work capabilities on even in the post-COVID world, which means that collaboration would become the backbone of company, right? Collaboration would become boundaryless. A company can, in this model, have the best of talent from anywhere in the world. This would technically add more functionality to the organization. Learning would be an extremely important part as companies would expect employees to be multifunctional, right? Think of the multidimensional comment I made earlier. And with the aid of augmented reality, virtual reality, immersive learning would augment things. Automation would also play a key role in cost savings, which is a top priority of enterprises now. Nearly 50% of the global enterprises plan to invest in robotic process automation to increase business resiliency in post-COVID-19 world. On the lines of cost savings, shared infrastructure like cloud services would become extremely crucial. Azure is growing 50% quarter on quarter, and that is quite telling in terms of how promising the future of cloud is going to be. One of the major concerns companies have related to remote work is really around security. And McAfee, I think, recently called out a study where they saw on an average about 375 new threats per minute in the last 3 months. Adoption of right security measures will be very crucial for companies as they authenticate devices and individuals outside of the office premises. IoT would play a key role in industries like manufacturing, automotive, etc., to make up for half of the capacity of workforce at factories. Also, interconnected devices would generate tons of data, which would help companies in improving their processes. Lastly, cognitive technologies like NLP, computer vision, and think of all the craziness around GPT-3 right now. These kind of things would help employees to function more efficiently. Enterprises are already projecting to double the number of AI projects, with over 40% actually planning to start at least one of those projects in 2020 itself. The future is going to be fascinating. Now, this is my last slide, and while Classic is the way forward, the journey to transform into a complete collaborative organization would definitely require enterprises to react in a systematic manner. Firstly, having a very clear roadmap is the most important factor, which defines the way the organization would be in the future, and also future-proof the organization on the back of solid technology investment. It is also imperative to empower employees with the best set of digital tools available and ensure the culture of self-service is embedded into the core of the organization as well. Investments into knowledge sharing, personalized internet portals would greatly help the cause. Digital workplace also requires organizations to follow a phase-wise approach, and availability of things like low-code, no-code platforms will further reduce the complexities in our beliefs. Goes without saying, organizations need to be agile as well. The speed at which solutions and processes get integrated into the existing set of infrastructure and become production ready would define how quickly they can transform themselves. Effective collaboration between IT and line of business functions will be the need of the hour, especially in case of building an effective total collaborative organization. However, one of the most important facets is also to ensure effective change management measures, because a lot of these things are going to be new for a lot of people in the company. Being calculative is what organizations should thrive as well, right? Thrive on as well. While moving in the journey of adopting digital workplace initiatives, having a clear idea on the effective return on investment and also a view on how the future of the organization is secured would have utmost importance. Lastly, having a transformative DNA would surely pave the way as to how organizations look at commodity workloads and transform them through new age digital technologies. A lot of focus should also be put in training and reskilling of existing resources, which should have a personalized touch, which will eventually help raising the bar for employees and their engagements and their satisfaction as well. The workplace, and worker are going through a historic moment in time. The future will certainly be very different from the past, and yet one can't really predict the complexities it will unfold in the times to come. Amidst all the uncertainty, the only thing that is certain in our view is the intent for companies to gain more than to lose in the future. How do companies transmute that intent into reality will define the winners of the future. And as Nassim Taleb Nicholas would have said, those would be the true anti-fragile organizations. Thank you so much for listening in, and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.